All right, welcome to Equal Time Soccer. I'm Matt Pravratsky here with Darryl, the Hammer Isaacs of Isaacs and Isaacs Personal Injury Lawyers, and Derek Burns of DinkyTown Athletes. We are here to talk about a very exciting development, but first, thanks for being here, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Darryl, I have a feeling this happens to you somewhat frequently, but you recently made history. I think you do that once in a while. This time for putting together the biggest NIL deal for women's team sports in Minnesota history. And we'll obviously get into the nitty gritty of DinkyTown Athletes, which Derek helps run. But for you, talk about sort of what made you want to pursue a deal like this, and how did the deal come together?
Well, I mean, I want to promote, student athletes. I like promoting women and minorities because I don't think they get enough recognition. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, it just seemed like a win-win. And in full disclosure, because my daughter is on the soccer team, mm-hmm. And at first it would probably prevented me from doing this because even in high school, she never liked, us to make a big deal or anything. But I don't know. I kept seeing, you see the athletes every now and then, like there's a gymnast in LSU, and then mm-hmm. you just see some of the maybe one in a million. But I'm thinking, why don't we just promote a whole team? And, mm-hmm. Again, I think men's get more recognition. And so right. It was kind of a labor of love for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you're someone who has done, for those who have not, doing the show was fun. I mentioned to Darryl before we started, because I got to do so much research on Darryl, and you've been such essentially a public figure because you're so visible in your community. You're so well known, longtime business leader, and so successful in your field that I've even heard you on other shows talking about all the marketing expertise you've built over the years, and you have a lot of self-deprecating jokes about it, but really you've done a ton of marketing. You do a lot of social media. You are frankly crazy huge on TikTok, on Instagram. You are so big. And so you also seem like someone who generally appreciates sort of the value of marketing and name, image, likeness just in general, right?
Right. Well, yeah, because, I always tell my kids, I'll tell anybody, listen, everybody in any profession has to market themselves every day. Right. I mean, you want to get in, college, you want to get a job, you want to get a spouse, you want to get a partner, whatever, you got to market yourself. So, and I was always, and that's my running joke. I just got back. I go out and lecture a lot and do stuff, and everybody makes a big deal. And I'm like, look, I'm average intelligence. I just found a way to find my niche, and I did it through my personality and, hard work. But I think everybody out there in any capacity should do some branding and marketing of themselves.
Right.
But you study my background. I mean, I flunked the bar twice, and I was on the lower end of the academic scale. So
I love it. For folks who follow Equal Time, they know we are usually sort of pretty unvarnished, pretty straightforward. So I love, even when you told that story on a different show, I love sort of how authentic you are, because I think that's also the most, covering women's sports, even covering all this stuff. The best way for us to do it, my brother and I on the site, is, we do it the way we would do it. We want to have fun with it. We think these athletes deserve coverage, but also if we did it just the way we think it's supposed to be done, it'd be too much of a grind to be worth it. Frankly, we have to do it the way that's actually enjoyable.
I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt.
Oh, no, jump in.
I'm big on higher education because my father grew up basically without a father, and he helped support and get, I don't know what the number, my brother said it was over 100, but of kids in college or college degrees. Mm-hmm. And I think, I don't know, I've gotten to know a lot of these girls over the last couple of years, and I just think the rigorous schedule they have, because they take a full load and then they're practicing soccer or training 6-7 days a week. And it's like, they don't have time for themselves, and their academics and their GPAs are incredible. And I'm just thinking, wow, so they inspire me. Mm-hmm. So I love being involved with people that inspire others. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
kind of why I do what I do.
I cannot agree with you more strongly. I've been covering Gopher Soccer team since 2016, 2017, and the dozens and dozens of people who go through that program, the players who go through that program. There's been multiple head coaches. There's been multiple rosters. Like you still just meet these incredibly high caliber people. They're unbelievable on the field. They hold themselves to such a high standard. I regularly meet these players, even like a young player, and I'm like, I think I'm intimidated by you. Like, this is crazy. Like, there's like you said, there's so much rigor in what they go through, and so they do deserve attention. Couldn't agree more. And I think Darryl spoke to this too. A lot of the NIL attention gets placed on maybe some of the craziest high dollar deals. A lot of it gets placed on maybe men's basketball and football. Obviously, in the Twin Cities recently, PJ had the recent quote out there saying, like, listen, if we want to recruit the best players, we need more support into our NIL collective. And so it's almost literally front page news. But there's not always a ton of attention other than from random independent outlets like ours on like the women's soccer team or other sports like that. What does it mean to get a deal like this, for a women's team at the U?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, to put it bluntly, this is a huge deal. It's a huge opportunity for the women's soccer team. I would echo your comments about and sentiments about working with them. They're all first class. And I know that's probably cliche, and a lot of universities are going to toe that line that, we recruit, not just great athletes, but great individuals. But I mean, in my time with this collective, we've now probably getting close to 100 Minnesota student athletes. And it really is true. These are exceptional student athletes. It's just been a pleasure to work with them. But so this opportunity is huge. And I think that, in talking with Darryl about this, I mean, he had a reason and a passion to want to support this. But I think after he got involved, he saw the huge business potential and branding potential, particularly of female athletes. I can share with you,
Right.
From DinkyTown athletes perspective, we do, we have fan club memberships and we work with boosters, but we work with businesses on business deals and placing like this student athletes as a part of an ad campaign. And over half of our business deals are for females. So the female student athletes, and you mentioned it, it's not just the University of Minnesota, but around the country are doing very well with NIL. They generally have better social influence. They have a more loyal following, which can be monetized, frankly. So
Right.
when they message things to their audience is more likely to follow and to listen to them. So it's a great opportunity for female athletes, and this deal in particular is huge.
Well, and it goes to what Darryl mentioned earlier, the idea of people think of branding as like some capital B branding, as like some business, enterprise. And the truth is, people have to do it for their own careers. They do it when they're trying to find friends or partners or whatever. It's sort of, people think of it as this weird, slimy, like business word. But the truth is, because those players actually had sort of built more of a brand, then you do see the audience more engaged because, the people who follow them for a reason. It's not just like random high school buddies. It's people followed them because, they were already showing their hard work in the off season, or, they saw the highlights that, Equal Time posted, or they saw some random thing of, oh, wow, this seems like someone either I aspire to be, or I respect, or I'm a fan of. So yeah, that's such a good example. And Derek, it feels, early on, I had sort of a unique experience. I used to have to interact with the U quite a bit in the earlier days of NIL, actually more on the compliance side, where I was working with the compliance officers and trying to make sure lines weren't being crossed. And for those who never had to live in that world, I think they might not appreciate that the U of M in general, the U of M specifically, and maybe even the Big Ten, but the U in particular early on was very, very careful in how they dipped their toe, versus you saw other schools just straight up announce $1 million deals, go full bore, like go cross every line. The U was very careful about how they did some of these things. And it seems like more recently there's been sort of more aggressive or more proactive work, officially naming DinkyTown athletes as the partner, the head coach of the football team saying we need more NIL money, all those things. For you in general, what has that shift felt like as someone sort of trying to get there to be more activity and more deals getting through?
Well, a couple things. It has been a lot of work, but
Mhm.
we've had enjoyed a very good partnership with the working with the university. I think what people don't realize, I guess this will come off as bragging, but we spent 6 months before we launched last year working with
Mhm.
and planning this and
Mhm.
working, and we knew from the very start that we wanted to work with the university, not against the university. We wanted to make sure that we were building bridges, that we could work with Gopher Sports Properties, which has a lot of brand partners that we could work with, and that's a win-win for those brands and the athletes, etc. So we knew that
Mhm.
in order for this to be successful, we had to be on the same page in terms of what we were and weren't going to do. And so it took a lot of time, and really the whole industry was evolving too. Let's be
Right.
honest; there was a lot of time where um, crazy stuff was happening, like you mentioned, just crazy different deals, and I
Right.
think we're still very early in this industry, but
Mhm.
what we're seeing is um, more commonalities. We're looking around and seeing what's working at other schools and what's making an
Mhm.
impact and what people are comfortable with. So I think that's probably where you're seeing it's become more vocal, more front page, because one, it's a huge
Mhm.
opportunity, and two, we and the university, I think, are becoming more comfortable with our relationship, and we've seen the athletes benefit.
Yeah, and even I mean, I think even the recent deal with Grey Duck Spirits, where you come out with the American Light Lager that's sort of perfect for tailgating and perfect for events, that was sort of a hit. Almost everyone in my feed was posting about drinking the new like Gopher NIL drink at the Gopher football game, which is such a slam dunk. Even for stuff like that, I mean, what's the what goes into trying to get a deal like that together? How do those conversations start? Is it you sort of trying to proactively work those relationships, or do you have folks like Grey Duck proactively reaching out to you, figuring out how they can be part of that landscape?
Yeah, so that, I mean, just that specifically, first of all, I'm not too proud to say that we're looking at what other collectives have done, and we saw some early success at other collectives with that. So we decided, hey, let's pursue a beverage partnership. I was totally wrong about that, by the way. When I saw that first come out, I thought this is never going to make much money. There's not enough money in it, and really, it has been for other collectives. It's been a big financial play for them. So,
Right.
frankly, we tried to copy a best practice there, and really, we took it on. Took it on ourselves to find a partner. I won't take
Hmm.
you through step by step, but it was
Yeah.
actually Grey Duck that reached out to us after we had talked to some other partners, and we were actually
Hmm.
looking at multiple partners, and we found
Right.
one that kind of checked all the boxes. So
Hmm.
it was really between us and Grey Duck. Now, I will say we've had really good working relationship with like Aramark and the Gopher Sports
Hmm.
partners, because that's what allowed us to get it in the stadium and to
Right.
get it in the
Right.
venue. So without a good relationship there with Gopher Sports partners, that just wouldn't happen. So it does. There's a lot of stuff in the background, and we're not done. I mean,
Yeah.
we actually had the. I'll just give one more point. It was really supposed to launch this week, the first week in October. But when in talking with the people that were involved, they said, wait a minute, homecoming is the weekend before. Like, is there just any way we can get it in the stadium and in a couple of the stores near
Right.
campus? So again, being a great partner, Grey Duck with their distributor really worked with us and worked really hard to get some product in last week. So a lot of work went into it, bottom line. But that one, I mean, a lot. I'll be transparent. A lot of our collaborations are not really a financial play. It's a branding play.
Right.
We're trying to collaborate with brands, whether it's different things to get the message
Hmm.
out that we can co-brand, and there just isn't a lot of money back to the collective, and that's okay.
Right.
This one has the opportunity to put a lot of money back
Yeah.
to the collective. I'll be blunt. So this one has the opportunity, and there's one more piece that we're poised to announce maybe later this week or next week. That's kind of the final piece that it does have the opportunity to bring some big time support financially, as well as the
Nice.
exposure and everything.
Well, I mean, Derek, if you want to just break it on the show, you can anytime. So just
I
feel free
wish
to
I
just
could.
break it. But I do think people who have never had to work those kind of deals before, like even just the beverage licensing piece of like imagine creating a whole like Gopher NIL drink, but you don't have the back end to actually have the permission to get it into a venue that has exclusive licensing. Like the idea, like, it could very well happen where someone spends a lot of time, but all of a sudden you can't get into a Gopher venue. That's very possible. Take a second to thank our sponsors. So Pence Homes first. I'm sitting in a Pence home. Nate Pence and his team. I helped my wife and I found our house during shutdown. Love living here. If folks are looking to move, looking to remodel, trying to find some financing for any of those projects, go to pencehomes.com or at Pence Homes. They are just fantastic partners. They support not only Minnesota soccer, but coverage like ours, which is huge. It allows me to do crazy crap like fly to the Dominican Republic and cover Minnesotans who make the youth national team, drive across the upper Midwest, all because of that. The other sponsor to bring up, Modest Brewing, will shout out. Listen, if folks want to try out Modest, this is the best time. They are right by Target Field. So before you go to the Twins playoff games the next 3 days, stop at Modest instead, grab a lunchtime beer, then head over for a 3:30 tee-off first pitch for the Minnesota Twins. But Modest is just absolutely fantastic. Great products, great merch. So check them out. And now we're going to pivot into someone who knows just a little bit about advertising and product and marketing. Darryl, we have to jump in and talk about some Super Bowl ads. For those who don't know, Darryl the Hammer Isaacs is one of the biggest names in the entire region down in Kentucky and that whole area. And I got to go through the deep dive of your full commercial catalog, Darryl. It is amazing. It's great. You start in the beginning, start with some basics, maybe some slow motion. Now there is full on like zombie apocalypse movies, movies in space, like full CGI, full costume. So first of all, how did you first get started doing these kind of commercials? And what made you just continue to invest and go sort of bigger, better, and crazy swings like that?
Well, first, on my condolences, you had to go watch them all. So I was with this one advertiser years ago, and he wanted to do a Super Bowl spot. Now, I got to be honest. So we're doing what's called regional. A national one would be like Budweiser and Miller Lite and all those. Mm-hmm. So the way it works, like you buy TV time, say in Kentucky, we would buy a 60-second spot, and they don't show the local advertisers like ourselves until halftime or later.
Right.
And we did a few, and they were okay. They didn't really have a pop. And then when I switched ad agencies and my commercials kind of took a different twist, I guess one of the things everybody keeps telling me is my personality is different. Personality is different. So it's not personality. I'm just vulnerable. I'm just one of those that admits I'm not the best in anything, where everybody's always saying they're the best. And I can relate to people more. So she started selling my personality, and that's when it kind of went off, took off. But, being a lawyer, we're not in the Super Bowl business, but from a branding perspective, we saw a few attorneys do ads and they were terrible. And then one day, I guess for me, the icing on the cake was I saw a great national ad where I'll never forget, a guy smacks the butt of a horse and it kicks someone behind him. And I was so enthralled with the commercial, I never knew what the product was. I didn't know what company. And I thought they just spent a couple $1 million and they lost this. So I was talking to our advertiser. And so she says, okay, we're going to start doing. And so what we would do is we do a national quality, and we were doing it on a shoestring budget. But I think the first time mine go viral on the internet, the first time it went viral, I'll never forget. The commercial was going to be released live on Super Bowl at halftime on Sunday. Well, that Friday we had it, and I thought, I'll let the employees see it, but I didn't want anybody to know about it. So I sent an email. Here's the commercial. Don't show it to anybody, but it's going to go live Sunday. Well, I wake up the next day and it's got 1.5 million views, and I thought, how in the hell? Excuse me, I shouldn't have said hell. But
you're good. You're good.
So it hit me. Telling people not to do it had the opposite effect. But then, everybody started loving our commercials, and I'm thinking, but here's the problem. So we went to 5 million, and I thought, what if I do one and we don't get it? It's a disaster. So we had to keep coming up with something better. So we went from 5 million to 10 million to 14 million. And so I'll be honest, we're doing one this year, but I'm nervous. What if we don't get 14 million views? But we do have a cool concept. So a lot of it, you just have to really do what's hot and popular. The Game of Thrones did really well because at the time, and I've never seen the show, but now since the commercial, I've done it. I've seen it like 4 times. I binge watch it, but I don't know. It's just, does it get us cases? Probably not. But what it does is it holds us out, and we started getting. I mean, last year, after COVID, we didn't do it for a couple of years. And last year, CBS did a national story, and they called, and they were mad I wasn't doing one. So they showed some of my others, but I don't know. I guess everybody loves watching Super Bowl commercials, and it's kind of got to be like fantasy football. I mean, everybody watches the Super Bowl, but they all love to critique the ads, and so
right.
And we got some twists this year that I think if they like the Galaxy one, I think they're going to love this.
Now I feel like
none of this is my idea. They come up with all the creatives.
I feel like I need to go to a Super Bowl party in like Louisville now. I need to like get down there and watch the regional broadcast. This is great. Well, and Darryl, I guess I sort of have to ask, is this the type of thing you're going to throw some of these Gopher Soccer players into, or will those be a little bit more targeted than the Kentucky Super Bowl ad?
I'm going to let Derek answer that one.
I don't know if I want to be put on the spot. We've had some ideas, that's for sure, and I think there is some marketability and exposure. So we'll see. It's
going to be good. Well, you need to let me see the behind the scenes where the players are auditioning and see who the best people are for sure.
There you go.
For those who don't know, we sort of briefly referred to this. Darryl's daughter Isaac is a fantastic, multi-talented player on the Gopher Soccer team. She sang the Star Spangled Banner at one of these recent games. So like, there's some chops. I know one of your kids is like literally a musician. So there's some chops on the Gopher Soccer team. Don't worry, Al. Don't worry. And Darryl, I mentioned sort of earlier, you're so visible just because you've been such a leader in your field for so long, but you're visible in the community. You're so active. A place named a salad after you. Because you went viral on your social channels of like sharing what you were eating, and you were doing sort of your own journey with like health and weight loss, all that stuff. Proceeds went to charity, for a place that helps folks with special needs get jobs. Yeah. The roast of Darryl Isaacs was for charity. Frankly, there has to be tape of that somewhere. I need to see this.
Gosh, I'm never doing that one again, though.
You've done stuff to support animal shelters, school supply drives, bike helmet giveaway, and I know you have a personal connection with the bike safety stuff, where a driver hit you while you were on your bike. For equal time people know I'm a hardcore bike walk person, so that story hit me hard. But what motivates you to get involved in these kind of things where you really are giving back, you're helping raise awareness? What sort of motivates you to do that on top of just the straight business side of it?
Well, that's just been my model. So many people have helped me in my lifetime, and I grew up at great parents, but my father, he wasn't a helicopter parent. He waited till I failed, and he would pick the pieces up, and he would just keep encouraging me. And you fail enough times, you either get up or you quit, and I never wanted to quit. So it makes you better. But I had so many people help me that I wanted to pay it forward. And, really where I started getting this idea was more during when I flunked the bar twice. I was listening to Zig Ziglar, and he kept saying something, you can get anything in this world if help enough people get what they want. So it's almost like as soon as I made the focus others, it came back to me in abundance. And even now, you wake up every day, you're grateful, but you find ways to pay it forward. One of the things I did, when I had my accident, I kept saying, if I ever walk, I'm going to help everybody. And we've helped, I'm proud to say we've helped over 1,000 lawyers do what I do. But it's not just about me, it's about them. And, I love watching them grow and develop. But I don't know, every day I wake up, I was telling my wife last night, I had something really nice happen. Sometimes you do something for others and you feel good, but, we've gone, heck with Amanda, she's gone to Europe a couple of times in high school on those soccer teams, and we're lost and didn't know where we're going, didn't speak the language. But I was coming back from Las Vegas, and I was stopped in Atlanta, and I'd flown a red eye, and there was I don't know, I guess I had one of those faces. People came up, and there was a gentleman that was a foreigner that spoke no English, and he had a phone, and he had a message, and you could tell he had concern, but he had to find his gate and terminal, and he didn't speak English, and he had that on his phone. And I just thought, God, that made me so proud. So, I was telling her, I touched my heart, and I grabbed his arm, and I said, follow me. And so, got him on the train. I showed him where we are, because I kept pointing. He had the letter D in his gate. And then I got him up there, and, he gave me a hug and a smile. I felt good, because I was that person in Europe years ago where I got lost and they didn't speak English, and I was freaking out. So just when you do for others, it comes back a million times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I that story hit super hard for me, because like I said, I recently was in Santo Domingo covering a soccer tournament, and of course went there without prepping and learning any Spanish at all. So just really savvy stuff that I do, of course. But it's so true. I like literally 5 people over the course of that 6-day trip were the reason I could get where I needed to go, and they just helped me, and that's a huge reason why I was able to experience what I did, for sure. Well, and Derek, I think we talked about you leading DinkyTown, and you mentioned sort of how new it is. For a little bit on your background, you were a Gopher football player back in the day. I think I found a really great picture of you in the pads. Those jerseys were great.
I want to see this.
I don't have it ready, unfortunately. Darryl, I'll send it to you after. But
okay.
But Derek, talk about how you got into this field, and obviously, I'm sure a certain amount of school pride goes into it. But even doing this exact type of a thing, how did you get into launching, co-founding this collective?
Well, this is a passion project for my business partner and I, Rob Gagg. As you mentioned, I'm an alumni. Rob happens to be a Johnny, but he's part of a family of multi-generation Gopher fans. Grew up in Minnesota, so this is our passion. Gopher sports is our passion, even before we got involved with this. But Rob and I were co-owners in a business for 20 years, and we sold the business almost 2 years ago, and the timing was such that we had exited that, and this thing was coming, and one thing led to another. We kind of got talked into it, if I'm being honest, by some well-meaning fans that knew that the university was going to need a collective, because that's the way things were going, and the timing was right. So we took this on as a passion project to get this going, and it's been very rewarding. A lot of work, but very rewarding, because you're working towards your passion. And so it's that's what got me involved. And I would just say this: I had some really, really good success and really good memories that I'm proud of as an athlete at the University of Minnesota. And in my era, I got the support that was needed for us to be successful. In my era, things like coaches getting you part-time jobs. A lot of the guys on the team, we got jobs because the coaches knew somebody that worked at a factory, or even crazy jobs, but it was jobs, and then helped out with money. And we had fundraising for a new weight room, etc. That was my era. This is the new era. And I know a lot of people might think that NIL is just paying athletes. That's not what it is. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but eventually people are going to figure that out. But this is athletes earning the money. And so it's a way for Gopher fans, businesses, boosters to directly impact the team and support them. And I think, I guess I'm turning this into a plea, but what I want people to hear is that we're very proud of what we've done so far, and this is just a great opportunity for people to support and give this generation's athletes the support they need.
Yeah, I love you mentioned the random Johnny who happens to be supporting the Gophers. We're always in favor of the rogue. Like, Minnesotans will take anybody. I know, for example, the entire Isaacs family are a bunch of all-star Louisville standouts. So we're happy to have an Isaacs up here. We need a little bit of that flavor. So we'll always take the Childers are all Michigan Staters, and Kate Childers is now on the Gopher soccer team. We'll listen. We want to break those trends. We're game for all of it. And I know, you mentioned Derek a bit there about obviously, we at Equal Time, we completely agree. This players are ready. We're earning revenue for other entities based on their name, image, likeness. It makes sense that they have a chance to earn it for themselves. The foundation of the case that brought this about is literally about college athletes who were, making video games successful, making jersey sales successful, but they don't get a piece of it. It's pretty base level logic that they get a piece of it. So I think it makes sense. And so a little bit in the weeds about that, just because I'm the type of nerd who could frankly ask you 25 follow-up questions. We won't go that deep, but so a deal like Darryl's, I think is maybe fairly simple to explain. Doing a deal with the team, so that I'm sure there's a sort of global number, maybe a global number invested in that kind of a deal for the team, and then how individually that plays out is just how it plays out. When someone gives, for example, like a general gift, so I remember seeing like the website launching earlier this year, the chance to just sort of get a membership, like you mentioned. How does the collective then utilize sort of that larger pot that's more generalized, or like we joked earlier about the lager revenue, the beer revenue? How then are those sort of distributed or used for the collective as a whole?
Yep. So there's not a short answer, but I'll do my best. The passive income streams, which has been our focus for the last couple months, like the beverage partnership, like our Parlor Burger partnership at Huntington Bank Stadium, that money's pooled in a general fund, and it will. Haven't decided this for sure, but it will more than likely be spent based on what our membership wants. So looking at the makeup of our members and when you become a member, I'll back up. When you become a member or make a contribution, you can elect which sports you want to support. You want your membership to support. So we're beholden to our members. So we're going to help them based on what our membership makeup is. The other part of it is we will and do take money out of our general fund to make sure that we're expanding to other programs. We do not want our collective to be the football only collective. We don't want our collective to be the men's basketball only collective. And we do have a commitment to equity that aligns with the university to make sure that it's as easy for somebody to support the women's soccer team as it is the football team. So we do use, funds from our general fund to support players in all different sports, because our goal is to support them all 500 or what have you, athletes. And as we grow and people support, that's what we'll do.
Right. And I think too, for context for folks, because I think even pretty hardcore sports fans I meet regularly, and they don't appreciate how different the scholarship structures are for different sports. So for instance, if you meet a general person on the street, they for sure think that every D1 athlete just gets a full scholarship. So I've talked to reporters, I've talked to people who are really hardcore into sports, and they think, well, don't they all get full rides? And I have to, like, the deep dive when you cover women's soccer, for instance, if you've had to talk to me at a bar about scholarship splits, it's 14 equivalents of scholarship. So that means across 20, 25, 30 players, you have the equivalent of 14 full-time scholarships, because it's not a head count sport. So in a sport like soccer, and now actually in the transfer portal era, it's even a little bit weirder. Coaches want to keep a little more extra in case someone opens up. So you're never actually really spending even the 14. And so it means across the team, you have players who are straight up walk-ons. You have players who maybe do get a full. You have players who maybe they get half for a couple of years, then they get a full. You have players who get 90%. And other sports are head count sports. So like football, men's basketball, that is a full scholarship. But soccer isn't even the extreme. Track and field is maybe the extreme, where it's all 5% scholarships, 10%. And so just to help folks appreciate what Derek's talking about, the idea of where this revenue goes. I mean, these are people putting in world-class effort, crazy amounts of like time and commitment. And some of them might literally be getting nothing, from the institution or through the NCAA, I should say. And just because of those rules. And so I think the idea of wanting to support other teams, I want to give some color on that, because frankly, it can be a little bit of a grind for some of these athletes in a way that I don't think people appreciate.
Well, and that's where a deal like this with Darryl is so is another level of great, because it's supporting everybody on that. It's the first deal that we've had that's going to support all of the athletes on the soccer team. We haven't had any other deal like this. So that's for the reasons that you mentioned, and a lot of other reasons. That's great. And I'm glad he brought it up, because, you know, like we're talking with some big fans and boosters of the men's hockey team that are well aware, but people might not know. Not everybody on the men's hockey team is under a full scholarship, and that surprises people. So how great would it be if we can get to a place as a collective where, you know, I'll just touch on this point. We're not involved in recruiting. It's one of the NCAA rules. So we don't offer inducements and things like that. But here's the way that you can use that in an above board way. If you can build up your support to be able to say, everybody on the soccer team is getting X, or everybody on the soccer team has this equivalent of support in NIL, so that, yes, if there are certain athletes that are getting a little less in a scholarship, maybe it's made up for with support through NIL. That's how it can be used in recruiting, is to be able to say, look, this is the support we're giving our current student athletes. And that becomes I think can be a huge factor.
Right. When I win the Mega Millions, when I win the Powerball, I will come in and I'm going to match the Hammer's gift, but I'm going to do it every year. I'm going to say it's endowed. We're going to do, you know, so then that's like the example. You know, we'll see. We also need to build a beer garden at ELR, Darryl, for you and I to be able to drink beers up there. So there's a lot of money we can spend on this.
Hey, Matt. Can I bring up one thing you mentioned? You mentioned a while back, if we want to break something on the podcast, I've got something we can talk about. You mentioned merchandise. We're going to put this out later this week, but I can mention it here first. We have, as a part of this agreement with Darryl now, we have officially licensed with athlete NIL apparel for the women's soccer team now up on our site. So if you go to DinkyTownAthletes.com, click on shop, and then go to apparel, there's a link tree, and we break out all of the licensed apparel. We now have on the top, there's a link to Gopher Soccer, and you'll see we break them up: offense, defense, and midfield. This is a great apparel vendor partner, and the proceeds from all of that merchandise goes back to the athletes. So for those of you,
that's awesome.
Hell yes.
Okay,
you guys, I'm pulling this up. This is, holy shit. This looks awesome. We're doing this.
So Gopher Soccer fans, hit up and Matt will will share out the links, but hit that up, check it out, and
this is magnificent. This is magnificent.
Yeah. So we work with the University of Minnesota licensed vendor, which is very unique because there aren't many of them, and that allows us to put the Block M, the Gopher colors, all of the trademarks and logos. And again, this is made possible by Darryl and his team making commitments. So check them out: short sleeve, long sleeve, hoodies, crews, all that, midfield, defense, and look at the designs are awesome. So
oh my God! Well, and here we go. We got an Isaacs right on
there's
the shirt.
Manda.
Look at this.
That's awesome.
Oh my God! Thank God we got in the weeds, because this is amazing. We are going to be. We know what my wardrobe's going to look like from here on out. So, and I love, as you mentioned, Derek, you know, all the legwork you all did at DinkyTown Athletes to make sure the licensing was in place.
Yep.
Darryl, your gift making this possible is just so unbelievably rad. I cannot believe how cool this is. And by the way, I've always, as a random thing, I've always said I would love more merch. I would love more Gopher Soccer merch. They know I will buy anything they produce. We have the new scarf down here. So this is so cool. All right.
Man, I love your energy, man. You're on, I'll tell you.
Well, we're making history here, guys. We're making history. Darryl, the Hammer Isaacs, making history, investing in the single biggest women's sports team NIL deal in Minnesota history. Derek Burns with DinkyTown Athletes, helping make it happen for Gopher Soccer and so many Gopher athletes. Thanks so much for being here, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go Gophers.